Hello and welcome to Time on Screen, a Worn and Wound podcast where we talk about watches, movies, and the intersection between watches, movies, and time. I am really pleased to be joined today for the special holiday episode by Blake Buettner, managing editor of Worn and Wound. Blake, how's it going?
Hey, real well, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And also very happy to be joined by Kat Shoulders, the media production manager of Worn and Wound. Kat, hello, welcome.
Hey, glad to be back.
Awesome. So we're talking about this is, like I said, a holiday-themed episode of Time on Screen. We're going to be talking about the 1990 holiday classic Home Alone, starring the one and only Macaulay Culkin, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, many others, John Candy, Catherine O'Hara. A true holiday classic of our generation. We're going to be diving deep into that movie. It's a documentary. I don't know if you guys knew that. This is something that actually happened in the Chicago suburbs in the early 90s. Before we get into that, it's a watch podcast. So let's do a quick wrist check. Blake, what are you wearing?
So I have an event that I have to go to after we finish this recording that is with Urwerk and Debit Tune. So I have an Urwerk UR100 on my wrist.
Appropriate. Yeah, that definitely definitely appropriate for an Urwerk event. You gotta bring the Urwerk heat, I think.
Talking Home Alone and going to Urwerk events.
Yeah.
What a day.
What a perfect Friday.
Exactly.
Kat, how about you? What are you wearing?
I am wearing my Seiko. They kind of call it the Ninja Turtle. It's like the all black PVD coated. It's sort of a rebellious watch in a way, and I thought it would be appropriate to wear for this movie that we're talking about today.
Okay, great. I'm wearing I tried to wear a watch that's appropriate for a festive time of year. This is a new acquisition. Not a new purchase, but a new acquisition. It's a piece of junk. I'm not going to lie. It's signed MCE, which I think is a real watch brand that they make very different watches now. Anyway, listen, I'll describe it and we'll post a link to it because I did post it in my Instagram recently. This is a gold plated watch. It kind of looks like a Nautilus case.
Wow.
But it's not a fake. Because I don't think there's a Nautilus that's comparable to this, but this watch has an AM/PM indicator. It's a mechanical movement, an AM/PM indicator, a date complication, and it has an open heart at 6 o'clock with a decorative pseudo bridge. I picked this up at a watch group Yankee Swap about a week or so ago. We got together and we did a watch junk drawer Yankee Swap where we just kind of exchanged kind of like jokey watch gifts, and I'm very happy with this is kind of like the hit of
Seems like it's a great bang for buck. I mean, $0 spent in total, and it's like I can see like there's places where the gold plating is already kind of like chipping off. I don't know. Like it's it'll probably give me a rash. The real key though is the gold purlon strap. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I don't know. Blake, should I review this for the website?
Yeah.
Well, now this is I can't endorse this. Zach.
I can't endorse it either. Like I said, this will be the one and only time this watch makes an appearance on a Worn and Wound podcast and on my wrist. It'll just kind of like sit on my desk as a reminder of a particular of one evening in the in our watch meetup groups. Lifetime. I think it's I don't know. It's festive in a way, right?
It's super festive.
Yeah. All right, wrist checks out of the way. Home Alone. Written and produced by John Hughes, directed by Chris Columbus. This is by far the biggest hit of Chris Columbus's career. But John Hughes had a long career making, kind of like teen-centric movies, and this is a little bit of a departure from his previous films. You guys John Hughes fans?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think so.
The earlier, like the 80s, John Hughes, yeah.
So all his movies kind of take place in like a this like kind of like a Chicago universe. Like they're all set in like the Chicago suburbs, and this movie is no different. It takes place in, I believe, like a North Shore Chicago suburb in a very kind of like ritzy area. The house is famously where Kevin, our hero, is left home alone, is kind of famously like ridiculous. It's this mansion, and there's been much written about how kind of like absurdly expensive this house must have been to for a family like that to own in the 90s, and much speculation, and we'll get to this, about what his parents did for work. There are all sorts of fan theories on that. Just a real quick plot summary for anyone who's not familiar with this, classic, movie. Kevin McAllister is an 8-year-old boy, I think. This is his age in the movie. He's accidentally left home alone when his enormous family is hectically trying to leave for the airport for some travel to France for Christmas, just as you do, as a family in the Chicago suburbs, I guess. And there just happens to be a crime ring happening, in his neighborhood, and he's left to defend his house against burglars, and hijinks ensue in kind of a Three Stooges sort of fashion, as the movie kind of climaxes in this long sequence of just really brutal violence. Actually, I think that's the only way to describe it.
It's true.
What do you guys? What was your first experience seeing Home Alone? Like, how'd you come to this movie?
Oh man! So I was what was I like 7 or 8, I think, when this came out. So I was kind of like in that prime. Like I loved this movie when I first saw it. I think I was a little too young to like see it in a theater. I do remember seeing Home Alone 2 in the theater like the day that it came out, and I don't think I was ever more excited for anything in my life. And that Talk Boy in part 2, by the way, that was like,
yes.
I've never wanted a Christmas present more than I wanted that Talk Boy, by the way.
I think that was was that a real product, or was it a product that was like made for the movie? Like,
yes,
made
and
for,
they
like,
made it,
retail
yeah,
after the
because
fact?
the packaging has a picture of him on it, of Macaulay Culkin on it. So I got I got one for Christmas. I don't know what the hell I did with it, but I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. But no, the first one I was just hugely fond of. It was like, it's like every kid's fantasy to like be have the whole house to themselves and get to do like whatever you want to do and eat whatever you want to eat and watch whatever you want to watch and all that kind of stuff. So seeing it, like the Blank Check movie and all that kind of stuff. Like if you're a certain age, this movie's like top. So I watch it like every year with my son now. It's like our Christmas, because he's 10, so he's like the age of Kevin.
Yeah.
So you can just see the gears turning in his head.
Later in the episode, I need to ask you about like the parenting that's happening in this movie. You're the only person on mic who's really qualified to speak to that, because there's some really questionable decision making by the adults in this family.
Yeah.
Kat, how about you? How did you come to Home Alone?
Yeah, I mean, this is one that I don't remember the first time I saw it, because first of all, I wasn't born when the movie came out, but I just remember watching.
Extremely old.
Yeah,
I was born the following year. No, but I just remember watching this as a kid, and it's just being one of those sort of Christmas movies that was on, and we've watched it. I think this is probably my most watched Christmas movie. It seems to always be on, part 1 and 2, both every Christmas. So it's always stuck with me. I think sort of the action comedy sort of aspect of it is just hilarious, and it really spans generations, because I think like little kids love this movie, and like grandparents love this movie. It's just one of those movies that everyone literally loves. Everyone likes to see people get hurt, I think, and it's funny.
Yeah, it has a universal appeal.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's a staple in our house for Christmas for sure.
Yeah. I mean, same here. Like, it's a movie that I think I grew up just seeing it on cable, like, constantly. I don't remember if I saw it in the theater. Like you, Blake, I know I definitely saw Home Alone 2 in the theater, and I might have seen the first movie in the theater. I would have been about 8 years old, about Kevin's age when the movie came out. And you're right. I like what you said, that it speaks to that fantasy that kids have of, having like run of the house, to yourself, making your family disappear. I think every little kid probably, wants that to happen at some point. But it also kind of speaks to like a universal fear that kids have of like burglars invading your space and like this idea of like strangers. And so it kind of like plays on both of those things in like a really interesting way. And I think that's probably why it's so it's universally loved, because you can always identify with those things from your childhood, even as an adult watching it.
Yeah, especially if you're a youngest child, like the youngest of your siblings, which I am. And you've got like older siblings that are always like picking on you when you're that age and all that kind of stuff. Then it's like even more like,
yeah. You don't get a ton of that in this movie because the family, like, they leave so quickly, and then like, the plot, like the Home Alone plot, really kind of starts. But I love all the stuff between Kevin and Buzz, and all the interaction between like the kids in that like opening scene. It's really great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do some watch spotting here. There isn't a ton of watch spotting in this movie, but you guys identified a watch on the wrist of Joe Pesci, which, I mean, you have better eyes than me, because this didn't like jump out at me when I was rewatching it recently. So Blake, if you want to tell us a little bit, or Kat, either one of you, if you guys want to tell us a little bit about the.
Well, I noticed it when I was watching it with Liam like the other week, and I hadn't noticed it before. But yeah, there's a couple of scenes that, particularly towards the end when they're getting out onto the roof to go across that rope, that you see a watch that he's wearing. It looked like a Citizen Diver or something like that to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't look it up or anything like that. It just tipped me off to like, oh, there's watches in this movie. Maybe I need to be paying closer attention. But Kat, you did look it up.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought the same too. I thought it was maybe a Citizen because it has sort of an analog dial, but then there's like obviously a digital, some sort of display on it. And it ended up being, I looked it up, it's a Casio 358 AMW-320C, whatever that reference number is. But it is sort of this Annie-Digi Casio that they sold back in the day. But I think it's funny because I never noticed that either. And of course now I'm watching it and I was like actually like really paying attention to more things. And I spotted it too, and I was like, "Oh man, he is wearing like this cool like either Casio or Citizen watch."
But they don't when they're in their OK plumbing van, and he's like bragging that he knows when all the automatic lights are going to come on, and they're like he's looking at a watch tiny, but they don't show the watch in that moment. But obviously their whole operation hinges on this understanding these intervals. So
that I mean, a missed opportunity for some like some marketing here on the Casio,
for sure.
To the watch that the Wet Bandits rely on for to pull their Christmas season heists.
It could be like waterproof.
Yeah, exactly.
Waterproof, and also like tar proof and chicken. It's like it has to resist all of these all
fire.
Things. It's really a perfect opportunity for some G-Shock like product placement.
Definitely.
The other notable watch scene, it actually there's a watch is kind of worked into a joke in the movie when Catherine O'Hara's character, the mother, is trying to get back to the United States to reach her son. She's desperately trying to get a woman to trade her ticket for her, and she offers up her watch, which I think we see in an earlier scene on her nightstand. It looks like a lady's date just, I think it's a two-tone lady's date just. And there's a joke where the woman says, "Is that a real Rolex?" And she says, "Do you think it is?" And she says, "No." And then who could tell?
But who can tell?
So implying that it's a fake Rolex ladies date just.
Which is odd.
Which is odd considering the extreme wealth of this family. What did the ladies' date just cost in the late 80s, early 90s? It couldn't be more than like a couple $1,000s.
For sure. Can I comment on just like her delivery of that line? I adore Catherine O'Hara. I think she's absolutely amazing and completely hilarious. And she like nails this. The mom here in this role, but how she says it, but who can tell? And she just kind of like brushes it away. So she has this like quality to her. I don't know, but then they're in like the first class seats. They've got the house.
Exactly.
They're going to Paris.
Why is there a fake Rolex?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, I love the lady too that she's she just gets greedier and greedier. She's like talking about her earrings and it's just like really like, I mean, I would have just done it out of the niceness, like, oh my God, your kid's alone here, take my ticket. But no, this like grandma is really greedy. In
No,
this
you
scene.
gotta, I mean, when the iron's hot, you gotta strike. Yeah.
And the old lady's husband is like
Just telling her to move it along. Just
all right.
She's got her own earrings.
A whole bag's
A
full
whole
of them.
box of them. Yeah, so that's I like it when watches are not just like in a movie as like a scenery, but when like there's a just like a any sort of like joke or like a little like snatch of dialogue about a watch that like I honestly like I notice that these days more than like the watch on someone's wrist. Like when I'm trying, it's hard, but I try to like focus on the movie when I'm watching a movie as opposed to like focusing on the just like trying to figure out the watch.
But this is why this movie is particularly difficult because it's obviously set in the middle of winter time, so everyone has these like layered big clothes on, so you don't really see many of the, and like coats, you don't really see the wrist. I guarantee John Candy has a watch probably like the one you've got on, Zach, like underneath his coat, right, or something along those lines.
No, that would make sense. This is definitely a watch that's appropriate for the Polka King. Is that
the Midwest Polka King?
Yeah, Midwest Polka King, I think. I love John Candy in this movie. We'll definitely talk about him. So let's get into some of our favorite scenes in the movie. I think that the movie is largely episodic. We follow Kevin through some of like these little almost like you could pull him out of like a sitcom almost, these little like experiences that he has being alone. The first scene on this rewatch that really jumped out to me is something that was particularly rewatchable, was that pizza dinner scene where like right after the pizza is delivered and they're all kind of like swarming the kitchen. There's just some great dialogue in there when Kevin's trying to get his piece of cheese pizza and he asks Buzz if there's any left, and he says if you want any, somebody's gonna have to barf it all up.
Yeah.
That's a moment. I mean, I'm as a kid that was funny, and I find myself laughing out loud as an adult. Still,
little barf humor, yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, Kevin, quick, get a plate." Is he gonna like feel it coming back?
Yeah.
And that's what obviously causes all of that to ensue, right?
Yeah, no, that sets off the entire like plot of the movie, because it creates this tension, and Kevin is kind of like dismissed to bed in the attic, where he's going to have to share a bed with Fuller, who's his real life brother, star of Succession. So it's and of course he wishes his family would disappear, and then the power cuts out and they all are rushing around the next day. And then we get to my next, kind of like rewatchable scene. Kevin wakes up alone on that first day, and you're cross-cutting between his realization that he's alone and the same realization on the part of his family on the plane, which I think is a really fun scene as well.
Yeah. But when he realizes, when he runs outside and he sees the cars in the garage and the garage doors open, which they also touch on the plane, and then, but what he says and the look on his face, the cars are here. They didn't leave for the airport, and then he has like a hard shock moment of like, oh, and that dawns on him like,
yeah, and he's actually really happy.
Yeah. He immediately begins, trashing the house. He doesn't really waste any time at all, which is odd considering he trashes the house for real at the end of the movie, and then apparently he cleans everything up so that it's spotless in the span of what must have been like a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Which is just fascinating. We should probably get into. There's so much to talk about like, logistically, but like just how does like time even work in this movie? Like, did he have enough time to clean up that enormous mess? Did his family have enough time to get to the airport that morning? Like
all the setup time.
Time doesn't seem to really matter much in this movie. Maybe that's why we don't really see watches, is because.
But realistically, like they realize obviously on the way there, and then she immediately tries to get back home, and that process maybe took like a couple of days. So I mean, we're talking about like a 3-day span here, max.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I kind of like figured. It was about 2-3 days
Yeah,
max.
it had to be. Yeah.
There's a lot of conversation around this movie, obviously, like 30 years later, about the like how long it takes, Catherine O'Hara and the family to get in touch with Kevin and to figure things out. And even like in a pre-cell phone age, I feel like in terms of like responsible parenting, like things should have gone much, much differently.
But how did she even know that he wasn't there? Like it just dawned on her that he wasn't
She didn't
there.
see
But
him,
in her head, he was, because she got the count from
She
whoever
trusted
that
the
was.
daughter.
Yeah, she trusted
the daughter's
her.
count. Yeah.
So did she just realize like, I just never saw him at the airport or something?
Yeah.
I'm imagining that she has that realization. I think that's a thing that, I certainly relate to that. Like there's plenty of times when I've left the house and I think to myself, I forgot to do something. Like I forgot, or when I'm like packing a bag or something and I've like left for the train station or the airport. I'm like, I forgot something. Like there's something I'm
You forgot to close the garage door.
Yeah. So like I think that's a common feeling that you've forgotten something, and then like maybe you realize what it is you've forgotten. So like I get that. But it's obviously it's absurd that like you would, like as a parent, you would forget your kid. Like, can you imagine a situation? Like, let's get into the parenting discussion here. Like, what would have to happen for you to forget?
Wait, Blake has one kid though.
Yeah, I don't have like 15 kids. And like it's Liam would absolutely, he does not like to be alone at all. And he also does not do well in like super big crowds or anything like that. So if we're like I walked through Times Square with him a couple of months ago, he's like clinging to, like he has a real fear of being like just lost in the fray of it all. So it's something that I'm sensitive to, like as a parent, obviously. But yeah, it's at that age too that Kevin is. I mean, you seem like more aware of it than, the Buzz and the other older ones. You're not really thinking of, they can kind of manage and understand. But the little one, like, come on, that's.
I wonder too if it's like a generational thing, because like you mentioned, your son Liam, and I have smaller cousins and things like that are the same way, that would really freak out if they were by themselves. But kids of this generation, they were more independent, they weren't, maybe as inside playing video games and stuff like that. So he was like completely opposite and just was like super stoked that he was alone.
And also he had that moment the night before where he was fighting with his mom, and he said that he wants his family to disappear and he never wants to see them again. Yeah. And then it appears that, in his like 8-year-old brain or whatever, that like he's made that happen. Yeah. So he's not frightened. He thinks he has this like godlike power.
Yeah. Well, he does come off as like a total punk. And you kind of understand that because that first scene and they're eating pizza and everything, it's like their fuse on Kevin is like so short. Like he immediately got sent to his room for something that was like really small. So you're thinking like he gets in trouble all the time and they're just like over it pretty much at this point. That's kind of what I understood from it. So he's like already this kid's. Yeah. He's incredibly
Even
spoiled.
In this one, it's all his fault. Like he's being a jerk, right? He had it coming.
I kind of like to imagine that Kevin in this movie is the same kid as the character he plays in The Good Son, the like the thriller where like the kid, like he's literally like a psychotic child who like tries to murder his step sibling or something. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's a good kind of from around the same period as Home Alone. It's
he was in the John Hughes movie prior to this as Uncle Buck. Yeah, and he's the kid in that as well.
Yeah, he always kind of plays this like precocious like troublemaker kid. And did he play Dennis the Menace, or was that a
no?
Oh, okay.
I don't know who that kid was. Dennis the Menace is another great one though.
Yeah,
Walter Matthau. Yeah.
And Richie Rich is kind of a similar
Richie Rich
similar vibe too. Like he was always playing like kind of like a precocious, troublemaking, wisecracking kid. Everyone loved that kid in the early 90s, like think of like Bart Simpson, and then it was the same sort of idea.
Exactly.
What other scenes stuck out to you,
Yeah.
Kat? Do you have any scenes that are kind of like particularly
Yeah, just a
memorable?
couple I put down here that are just always sort of memorable. The church scene I really like. It's sort of a heartfelt moment. And I just made a note that it's kind of like Kevin's realization of, he's been a punk all year and, he's kind of sorry for it and he's starting to miss his family. So it's just sort of this heartfelt moment in this kind of sort of crazy movie that I really like. And I like the conversation between him and the neighbor that's had. Zach, you kind of made an observation, or maybe it was you, Blake, about him not really, Kevin was trying to like help him and make him, realize that, he needs to kind of rekindle his relationship with his son. And the guy was just like,
He doesn't seem to understand it. I think it's just bad acting on that old man's part. Like, honestly, I think the actor just wasn't really kind of like dialed into the right, like the right mood there. Cause Kevin's making a very obvious on the nose point about like trying to like reconnect with his son. And the old man's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
Yeah, but that's like a part of that's echoing like the theme of the movie, right?
Sure,
of like I'm pushing away these relationships and then I'm like alienating them and I'm alone as a result, and that is that guy's like life.
Yeah.
Because of it, and he was the parent. Though
they're both on the same kind of journey. There's a theory. There's all sorts of Home Alone fan theories. This is what happens when
I love it.
This is what happens when a movie is released. And like the same like age group keeps watching it over and over again. They just look for meaning. But I did read a theory once years ago. I didn't even link to it in our outline, but that the old man is Kevin, and like there's like a time warp thing happening, and like the relationship between Kevin and his dad and the old man and his son is, they're happening on like parallel timelines or something. It's a wild theory, but
I'll like that
I
one.
like that. Yeah.
we can put links in the show notes to all the different like fan theories around Home Alone, but there's a lot of Reddit diving to do on that particular topic.
Love it. Yeah. Can I comment on a scene?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at least kind of like a tie off that. It's around when in the beginning of the movie, Joe Pesci is like faking being a cop, and he's just standing in their house as all of the chaos is like ensuing, and he's like watching it all. But like they never really acknowledged, like, does anybody ever acknowledge that like, oh, he's that guy that was here, like after the fact? And does Kevin make that connection when he sees them like outside in the truck and he's following them or something like that? But in my head, I was like, okay, so he knows there's something not right about this cop, right? They kind of imply that, like he looks at him and he can see his gold tooth and he like gives him a wink or something like that. So this maybe instilled like a distrust or fear of cops in him, because later in the movie, when they call the cops and have a cop go to the house to knock, he doesn't come down to answer the door.
Yeah, the worst welfare check ever. It's like,
tell the lady to count her kids again. I love it. But I think if he would have knocked and said like, hello, it's the police, I think that would have tied that loop together, because it would have. It's like, oh, that's why he didn't go down and open the door, because he had that like distrust from seeing that creepy ass cop in their house.
Yeah, and then
but they don't like. Why didn't he go down and just answer the door otherwise?
Yeah.
And even at the end of the movie, when he finally does call 911, he gives them the address of his neighbor's house. So like that even further kind of like reinforces this idea that he doesn't want anything to do. With cops.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, because that guy was standing right in his house, right? And he's like a creep show, and then he, but he never acknowledges that, like, oh, this guy was like casing our house, and he was a fake cop in my house, and
no, there's no acknowledgement of that. I'd kind of like to see a version of the movie where they do identify that. I feel like the dad might be on track to do that when he picks up the gold tooth at the end, because I don't know if he notices the gold tooth in that early scene, but certainly, like the dad has a conversation, with Joe Pesci's character. And so like, like the next day, at the lineup or whatever, when like the police call, Mr. McAllister and ask him to come down to the station to identify, this guy, I think he would, at least in a world where things happen as you'd expect them to happen, which is not this movie, I think he'd identify him, correctly, you would think.
I really like that whole opening sequence. So John Hughes is so good at just like setting a mood.
Yeah.
With these scenes, and everybody's like has a certain depth to them. They just have a feeling that, how it's written is just awesome. I love it.
Is it believable that a police officer would just go house to house in a neighborhood like that just to kind of like check in on these wealthy families? Does anyone have a thought?
Well, this is like Midwest suburbs, people leave the doors unlocked, and it's all like all the neighbors know each other, all that kind of thing. So if a cop was a part of the community, then I could see him like maybe having, talking like he would with his neighbors if he's there. But just some like random cop that you've never seen before, just like chilling in your house. Yeah,
and Joe Pesci is doing this, right? Just to case houses. Is that his ultimate goal? Or is he doing that as a cop in the beginning?
So I think he was trying to figure out when they were leaving and how long they'd be gone, right? So it's like apparently, and I've gathered, he did this with all those houses because that's how he knew. Okay, this is when all these are going. Like he knew exactly what was going on in that whole neighborhood, and so.
Yeah, no, that's certainly the implication, at least as I see it, that he's posing as a cop, going from house to house, trying to determine, what sort of, what sort of protections they might have in place. Posing. Yeah, I don't.
What if he is? What if he?
I mean, if he is a real cop, I never even considered that.
That was my thought. Was that he was a cop?
Oh man, that makes it.
What really?
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought he was a cop.
So then, this movie, if he is a cop, it really becomes a very political movie about police corruption.
Yeah.
If Joe Pesci is a cop. Well, that's fascinating. We're gonna have to put a poll on Instagram or something asking people if they believe that Joe Pesci's a real cop.
Yeah, because they don't show a car or anything, do they? Outside, there's no like cop car. I guess there's no scene outside.
No
the house. Yeah.
The signal to me, even as a child, that this was not a real cop was the gold tooth. Like when he flashes that gold tooth, and Kevin kind of like, gives him like the side eye in that like opening sequence. Like that's the signal in my brain, and I think it's meant to be the signal in like all of our brains that like this guy's not on the level.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
I was like, he's a cop. He's a cop gone bad.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a theme in many great films. They're usually quite a bit grittier than Home Alone.
Maybe he was trying to be a legit cop and help out, and then he's in all these houses, and he's like, God, there's a lot of nice stuff in here.
Yeah, he's gone rogue. He says something in that scene that always kind of like makes me like do a double take. He says, "There's always a lot of crime around the holidays." Like, do you really? Is it a desirable neighborhood? Like, if there's always a lot of crime, like it seems like a very like ritzy place. Like, are these people just getting ripped off like year after year? Like, is that just like part of the experience of living in this North Shore suburb? That like, oh yeah, we're gonna go away for Christmas. Our house will get broken into, and that's just what we'll have to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, they don't seem too fussed about it at all.
Yeah. No. They really
the whole family's like whatever.
Yeah.
No one in that family pays any level of respect to that police officer.
No.
At all. At all.
Yeah. No. They're all very. They're just very nonplussed about everything. It's almost like it's a movie, and they're just trying to get to the bit where the kid is left home alone, and they're not paying attention to reality in any way.
We got to get to these hijinks. Yeah.
Okay. Any other scenes that stand out to you guys? Can we talk about the John Candy appearance in this movie?
Yeah, we should talk about that.
I love John Candy. Is he's no longer with us. He passed away many years ago. But he's as you mentioned, Blake, he was the star of Uncle Buck, the previous John Hughes movie that kind of like launched Macaulay Culkin. Uncle Buck, incidentally, I think is maybe like the first movie I can remember seeing in a theater. I don't know if it was the first movie I actually saw in a theater, but like I definitely remember seeing it in a theater, and so that movie always holds kind of a special place, in my heart. But John Candy's kind of like the hero of this. Yeah, it's a great kind of like family comedy, and he's sort of like the hero of this movie. He he provides Catherine O'Hara's character a ride with his polka group, and he has it's a very short scene. I don't even know if he's credited in the movie, but he was apparently paid scale, like $400 or whatever to appear in the movie, and apparently all of his dialogue was improvised. Chris Columbus just let him rip, and just kind of say whatever came into his mind, which really makes that scene in the truck it'd make a lot more sense, because it has a very different tone as he's describing like this horrible thing that he did with his kid, leaving him in a morgue with a corpse.
It's amazing. Scene. I've heard this as well, that he just ad-libbed all this stuff, and I'm like, I would love to see like how much footage did they get of him just like rattling off stuff to her, and them like playing off each other.
Exactly.
I would also love to see that. Yeah,
be brilliant. I'm sure. Well, that guy's never even met his kid.
They did it all in 24 hours. Like everything he did was all in a day, basically.
Yeah,
but I'm sure there are just film rolls of him just ad-libbing just different things, and they just used best of for the movie.
Yeah. It's got a great vibe.
So I think without question, like the key scene that's probably everyone's favorite is that extended sequence where the wet bandits are attempting their break-in of the house. So we obviously need to dive into this. I kind of want to start by asking you guys, what's your favorite booby trap that Kevin sets for the wet bandits in his home defense?
It's not even like a major one. It's where Joe Pesci kind of walks through and gets looks like a plastic wrap of oil on his face, and then he peels it off, and then it's just feathers that hit him. And it's like, it's not even bad. It's just kind of annoying. Like, it's annoying enough to kind of stop you for a few minutes while you
what
wipe
was that supposed
feathers.
To do?
It was not really meant to do anything. Exactly. There was all these like really horrible, horrific things that Kevin set up, and then there was just like feathers. And I thought it was so funny. And I thought, God, that would be really annoying though, to have to go through that. And so that's kind of one of my favorites. And then, of course, anytime the spider scene is incredible, and
all the spider scenes
just makes me burst into laughter every time.
Yeah, the thing about rewatching, and I'm sure you guys have noticed this too. It's probably been commented on many times. That feather scene is ridiculous because Joe Pesci, he walks into the oil saran wrap, right?
Yeah,
and then he's staring straight ahead.
Yeah,
which is where the fan is that's going to blow the feathers on him. Yeah. We know that from the previous shot where Kevin's like setting it up. So he's like a true moron, like in that moment, just kind of like walking straight in to this, like to the fan that's going to blow the feathers on him. Like, it's just
that's the one that gives it up. Like, he's trolling these fools. Like he's just, he's like, I'm going to make these look like it's like, okay, I'm protecting the house, all this. And no. Like, he's just straight up trolling these guys.
Yeah. 100%. He's you can make a very convincing case that he's just a pure sociopath. I think the thing that to me, kind of reveals his sociopathy is when he's messing with the pizza delivery guy, which he does not have to do. The pizza delivery guy is not going to rat him out to the cops. It's not going to impact his Home Alone experience. He can answer the door of the delivery guy and take delivery of the pizza,
because he has the money. He gives him the money.
Yeah. Instead, he terrifies him. Scars him for life. Potentially causes him to slip and fall on the icy sidewalk. But he could have broken his neck or died. He did not have to torture the pizza delivery guy.
No, all for the shenanigans. It's all for the shenanigans. Yeah, no, to me, Daniel Stern is totally brilliant. In this movie, and all the stuff that he goes through, I think is just so funny. The trying to get down the steps that are ice, and him trying to get up on the door, and he can't quite do it. To the toaster or the iron hitting him in the head. And then of course and he kind of ramps up his stress level the whole time until it culminates in Kevin setting the spider on his face, and then he screams and his voice goes that octave higher. It is just beautiful. This is just one of the best scenes in all of cinema history. No, I will never not just die laughing at that scene when it happens.
Well, it's sort of a lead up to it, because there's all these scenes where you see the spider in the corner, he's crawling, and it's just this lead up to something's going to happen with the spider, and you don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's spider. It's just you see it and it's someone's going to experience that spider.
And I'll tell you what, if somebody put that spider on my face, I'd have the exact same reaction.
Pass out.
Would scream and everything he did is exactly what I would have done too.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to call out the Micro Machine gag where they slip on the Micro Machines. I don't know if you guys. I had Micro Machines as a kid.
Oh, really?
So like I appreciated that that scene quite a bit. I really enjoyed that.
Those things were huge back in that day.
Oh yeah, no, it was
Micro
definitely.
Machines, oh my
yeah,
gosh,
no, it was
yeah,
it was
I
a
had so many
fad.
of those.
They're probably still in a box somewhere in my parents' house for sure. I wonder if they have any value.
After this, I'm definitely getting on eBay and looking for Micro Machines.
Same, 100%. So yeah, I mean that scene is just that whole sequence, with the home invasion, is just really, really great. It's hard. It's kind of weird to think of, like a home invasion scene where these burglars are preying on a child as like a, one of these like great, like feel good kind of like family movie scenes. Cause it's really dark if you start to think about it, in any sort of, real way for too long. But yeah, no, it's just,
what's sort of crazy to me is like, when I think about Home Alone, that's the first thing that pops in my mind is this sequence of events that are happening when they break in. But in reality, it's like kind of a small part of the movie. It's sort of towards the end, and it's maybe 20, 30 minutes in length, and the rest of the movie is just
even less.
kind
It's
of a
probably,
buildup.
Yeah, it's really like
and it's just it stands out so much that like that's what everyone goes to. That's what everyone thinks of when they think of Home Alone, and it sort of just stands on its own as this great film because of that amazing scene where they're trying to break in and all the booby traps essentially that Kevin has set, which are just like so devious and I just like can't
they're
imagine
psychotic.
being 8. No, exactly. They're kind of scary. I'm just like, wow. Like the nail, when he steps on the nail on the steps, I'm like, oh, that is just painful.
How many times would they have died going through this?
Oh, the fire on the head.
Seriously injured. Yeah, the fire on the
I would have gave up. I think I would have given up.
I'd have been like, yeah.
The slipping on the ice thing. Like I've told the story on the podcast before about how I've slipped on ice and I broke my wrist, and like it's like so that like you're rewatching it like since that time I like slipped on ice and broke a bone, really kind of like hits home. It's lots of dangerous things happening in that sequence.
And part 2 is even worse. Like he's for sure killing those guys with the stuff that he pulls on in part 2 on them.
Way more painful, I feel like.
When he's just chucking those bricks off the top of that building.
Yeah.
And they hit him right in the head. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, even like the paint cans in this movie.
Yeah.
Even the paint cans.
Do similar damage. If you get like hit with a swinging paint can like in your head, like dead on, like that's going to cause a serious head injury potentially.
Yeah. That's what I have to tell Liam because he thinks it's all funny. I was like, those dudes are dead if that stuff happens in real life. So don't think you can just like, Liam would never do that.
So like one additional question I had about that, like that robbery scene, like the home invasion scene is, the wet bandits, they really seem to be going after Kevin, like specifically. Don't you think like in like, again, like you have to suspend disbelief when you're watching Home Alone, or any movie, but like if you're really like trying to rob the house, wouldn't you just like kind of ignore the kid and like all these like things happen, like the booby traps are all set, for these guys as they're like chasing Kevin. If they didn't chase him and just like went for the jewelry drawer or, the the stereos and VCRs that he mentions, like I don't think that those really have a ton of value anyway, but like, it kind of speaks to like their like, kind of tendencies that they're after this kid instead of just saying, oh no, let's rob this place. Like, the kid's running away anyway.
Well, I think he sort of just like pisses them off, with the first set of, sort of ice and traps. And at that point, they're just like, oh, we're getting this kid at this point.
Yeah. They have no discipline as criminals. Like a disciplined cat burglar would just like ignore that and avoid all the booby traps, which are fairly obvious if you stare straight ahead and see the fan with the feathers,
Go for the fake Rolexes.
Go for the jewelry drawer full of fake watches. So I wanted to kind of address a couple of theories here. I know you guys, we talked about this offline earlier. You guys are not Sopranos viewers, but there's a there's kind of this like long-standing theory that there's this Home Alone Sopranos extended universe because John Hurd, the actor who plays Kevin's father in the movie, plays a corrupt police officer in The Sopranos.
Oh.
And so the theory is basically that this guy has made a good living as a corrupt police officer and is living like high on the hog in the Chicago suburbs and is
with his 8 kids.
yeah. Anyway, like that's his story in The Sopranos is kind of like it becomes like fairly tragic, let's say. But
Okay.
there are a lot of these there are a lot of theories around around like what's actually going on with this family because you never learn what Mr. McAllister does for a living. Like it's never addressed, and they have this like incredibly luxurious lifestyle. Fake Rolexes,
Notwithstanding.
excluded. And so like there's all this conversation in these Reddit message boards about what he does for a living. And so the Sopranos shared universe theory is one, and then another one kind of related to that, but distinct, is that Peter McAllister is in the mob, and that his family's in the mob, and that his brother in France is like higher up in the mob and is flying him out for some sort of like, mob Christmas or whatever.
I could see that. I could totally see that.
But it's not just his brother. They talk about this in part 2, right? Because it's his brother's place in Manhattan that he tries to go to. That's like being renovated. Like the whole place is. So he has the place in Paris, and then he's got a place in Manhattan as well. So
it's huge.
Yeah, that's like a whole walk up, like brownstone.
So what do they? So what could they possibly do? Like, what kind of business do you think they're involved in?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just the family. The whole family has money, right? Because like his brother's got these places in really nice cities all over the world, and they're flying first class everywhere. And the dad seems like kind of useless, right? It's the mom that's like doing all the stuff, right? And
also,
she's the one
I just
that
want to shout out moms real quick because Kevin is so rude to her in the beginning. Like he hates his mom, basically. I mean, I think he calls her a dummy, even in like one of the first scenes.
Yeah,
but then as soon as he like needs help, it's mommy. He's calling for his mom, not his dad. And I just think it's so like, that's just like every kid's relationship, right? We sort of use and abuse our moms. And then when we want help, we call for our moms to help us. But I thought she was like treated so badly. And I would have definitely got smacked if I talked to my mom like that.
Yeah, 100%.
No, he's very, he's very rude to his mom. And that's part of like the kid fantasy aspect of this is like, like
wish you could talk back like that.
Yeah, like if
God,
it imagines this world where like you could talk back to your mom and not get like slapped across the face for saying that. Yeah. So I mean, the fan theories are wild. Like we'll post some in the show notes because they're really quite crazy.
I love that theory. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something to the like Peter McAllister being mobbed up theory.
I think it's funny too. So it's his brother, right? It's the uncle that's there with them. It's one brother, right?
Right.
And he's sort of cheap in a way.
He's a
like
cheapskate,
he doesn't want to pay for the pizza, and so the mom has to like scrounge up to go pay the pizza guy. And
on the airplane, he's like, put it all in your purse.
Exactly.
Oh, it's real
So you can already tell he's like this skeevy uncle, that everyone just doesn't really like. I love it.
Is that Mr. McAllister's brother?
That's what I don't know. I thought maybe it's her brother. I don't know. But then they're all going to Paris, so maybe I don't know.
So we need a McAllister family tree, I think, to kind of understand all the relations. Yeah. There's a lot of people in the house.
Yeah. How many of those kids are theirs? Like what? Yeah. There's a lot of.
It's just a lot of cousins. A lot of It's totally nuts. So as we kind of like wrap up here, I just want to get you guys your take on this and like the pantheon of holiday movies, Christmas movies. Like where does this rank for you?
Ooh, I would put it right darn near the top. I mean, holiday movies, right near the top there. I will say this: I almost like Home Alone 2 more, or like just as much. Like 2 is so good as well. So I would put this. up there with 1 and 2, and then Die Hard maybe, and then like Christmas
you're one of
Story.
those.
Yeah, a Christmas Story would be like down, like maybe 10 or something like that. And the Christmas Vacation or whatever that is with the Chevy Chase, that would be like up there as well.
Yeah.
So
How about you, Kat?
It's definitely in the top 5 for sure, and I agree with Blake. I'm Home Alone 2. Like that's my favorite of the both. I mean, they're both great, but I really love 2. I don't know if it's New York or the city aspect. I think it's almost even scarier that he's in the city by himself versus like at home.
Oh yeah, that's definitely more terrifying to me.
Yeah, I love the characters in Home Alone 2 better, I think too. But yeah, to me, I mean, I'm sort of I'm not a diehard Christmas movie person, by the way. I don't think that's
okay.
I fall in that category. But yeah, the Elf is up there. I've never really rated Christmas movies, but in sort of a top 3 or 4, I think Home Alone's definitely in there for sure.
Yeah. It's pretty high up for me. I think it's been a while since I've watched 2. I definitely have good memories associated with Home Alone 2. So like I've got nothing bad to say about Home Alone 2, but I rewatch. I've seen 1 many more times than I've seen 2. Like 2 is not like a staple rewatch for me.
If you haven't seen it in a while, you really should. I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, maybe I'll. I might
and
throw
then
it on.
they've transitioned to the Sticky Bandits in part 2.
That's right. Yeah, the Sticky Bandits. Yeah. I really hold National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation in pretty high esteem. Like that's one that I love to rewatch over and over again. I think Chevy Chase is just hysterical. And I love all the National Lampoon's Vacation movies. European Vacation is really fun too, and of course the original. I'm Jewish. I grew up in a Jewish household, and so like Christmas movies aren't really we don't have like a Christmas movie tradition in my family. I feel like a lot of my peers, they watch these movies as a family, every year, and that's not really my experience. I just sort of catch them on, on cable or whatever, and sort of enjoy them, during the holiday season in a very kind of secular way. Not that anyone else is enjoying Home Alone as a religious experience. That would be strange. But I feel like my experience for that reason is a little bit different. I don't have the long catalog of Christmas movies that I go through every year. Like sometimes people, recommend Christmas movies that I've never seen or heard of or, whatever, care to watch. And I like movies. I've heard of and seen a lot of movies. So for me, I kind of stick to the my generation's classics, like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Die Hard. I am definitely a Die Hard as a Christmas movie person for sure.
All right, yeah. No, that's a good one.
You guys have any final thoughts on Home Alone?
We're just not going to acknowledge the continued Home Alone universe that has gone on.
Okay, I'm not as familiar. Again, I'm not exposed to Christmas movies on the the same level as the average person. So, Blake, what are the top picks from the continued Home Alone?
So I'm not all that familiar. I think I saw 3 ages ago, but
I've definitely never seen.
But
is Macaulay Culkin in 3?
He's not in 3. It's all different. Oh, there might have been some of the same people.
I think the kid from Liar Liar is in the 3rd one. Is that right? I think
that might be it.
Small kid.
Yeah. But they made a newer Home Alone so it's like straight to TV or something like that, obviously. But Buzz was a police officer in this one,
man.
And then it was and he was kind of like a stereotypical kind of lazy police.
Was it
officer.
the same actor?
Yeah, the same actor.
Oh,
yeah.
Really? Wow.
The guy that literally, so it's like he reprises his role as is this guy, in this universe, and then there's another kid and other shenanigans that are I mean, they're still silly. I think there's something with a big super soaker, but not nearly as cohesive, obviously as
or probably as violent.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so
yeah.
I don't recommend any of 1 and 2. You're good.
Yeah.
Then jump straight to The Sopranos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both need to see The Sopranos. I think that's like
I
my big
know.
takeaway from doing this podcast with you is that neither of you have seen The Sopranos, which is like ridiculous. It's like the greatest TV show ever made. Like, yeah, that's your Christmas vacation assignment is to rewatch to watch for the first time The Sopranos.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We'll do.
Well, thank you, Kat, and thank you, Blake, for coming on for this special holiday themed episode of Time on Screen. Really appreciate you being here. And for all you at home, I hope you have a happy holiday season, celebrating whatever it is you decide to celebrate, and have a nice relaxing time with your families. And thank you for listening to Time on Screen. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube and all the places, and leave us a review if you like the show. And we will see you again next time.